Barry Gibb has been famous for more than 60 years, and yet the version of his life that most people carry in their heads has almost nothing to do with the one he is actually living. The harmonies, the white suits, the Saturday night anthems that rewired the entire landscape of pop music and disco. Those images are frozen in a particular decade, and the man himself has kept moving through time while the world's memory of him stayed still. What Barry Gibb is living with now, at 79 years old, is something that fame never protects anyone from, the specific silence left behind when everyone who truly knew you is gone. He nearly never made it to any of this. Born on the 1st of September 1946 at Jane Crookall Maternity Home in Douglas on the Isle of Man, Barry Gibb arrived into a household already built around movement and music. His father, Hugh, a drummer from Manchester, took work wherever hotel stages had him, and his mother, Barbara, kept the home running through constant relocation. Before Barry was 2 years old, a hot teapot set down within reach changed everything. He pulled it down onto himself, the burns were catastrophic, and gangrene set in before doctors could respond effectively. At one point, the medical staff believed he had minutes left to live. No skin grafts existed then, no modern interventions were available, and what followed was 2.5 months in Noble's Hospital on endurance alone. Barry survived, emerged with permanent scars, and carried forward a 2-year gap in his memory so total that he later said the knowledge of being burned lived inside him without any images attached to it. He knew it happened. He couldn't remember any of it. By 1949, the family had moved to St. Catherine's Drive, and that December, the twins Robin and Morris arrived, changing the shape of the household overnight. More moves followed through the early 1950s, and music arrived not as a career plan but as instinct. The brothers formed a skiffle group called the Rattlesnakes in 1957, covering songs by Cliff Richard, Paul Anka, Buddy Holly, and the Everly Brothers, with Barry on lead vocals and guitar and the twins backing him. Their first professional gig landed on the 28th of December 1957 at the Gaumont Cinema, and it wasn't a breakthrough so much as a confirmation, proof that what they were building could exist in front of an audience. When the Gibb family boarded the Fair Sea in Southampton in August 1958 under an assisted migration scheme bound for Australia, the music came with them and never left. Australia gave them no guarantees. The brothers sang between races at the Red Cliff Speedway for income, which was the kind of stage nobody plans for but everybody learns from. And that visibility brought them to radio DJ Bill Gates, who paid real attention to Barry's original songwriting. Barry had already written Let Me Love You and Underneath the Starlight of Love, and he kept producing material with a discipline that owed nothing to formal education. By September 1961, he had left school entirely because music had already settled the argument about what his life would be. The family relocated to Sydney in early 1963. The Bee Gees signed with Festival Records and placed on its Leadin' imprint. And from that point through 1966, every Bee Gees single carried Barry's name as songwriter. Other artists were recording his material fast, with Jimmy Little taking One Road to number 2 on the New South Wales chart in 1964, and Barry collecting the Radio 5KA Award for Best Composition in 1966 for I Was a Lover, a Leader of Men. The return to the United Kingdom in early 1967 changed the scale of everything. On the 24th of February, the group passed a live audition and signed with manager Robert Stigwood the same day Spicks and Specks was released in Britain. Drummer Colin Peterson and lead guitarist Vince Maloney joined the lineup. The first international album arrived quickly, and their second single, To Love Somebody with Barry on lead vocals, established a reach that the band hadn't had before. That same year, inside London's Speakeasy Club, Pete Townshend introduced Barry to John Lennon, who had just left the Sgt. Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band photo shoot and barely turned from his conversation. Barry would say years later that he met Lennon's back, not his front. Close enough to brush history, far enough to feel invisible. The schedule that year was punishing enough that both Barry and Robin collapsed from nervous exhaustion on a flight from Australia to Turkey, and by the end of 1967 the fractures inside the band were already visible to anyone paying attention. The split, when it came, traced back to a single A-side decision. Robin's Lamplight lost out to Barry's 1st of May for the lead single from Odessa, and what should have stayed a creative disagreement became personal. Robin announced his departure in March 1969. Barry and Maurice continued under the Bee Gees name, recording Cucumber Castle without Robin, while Robin released Robin's Reign in February 1970, which produced a UK number 2 single in Saved by the Bell but didn't approach the reach of a full Bee Gees release. Neither side found what they were looking for on their own. Solo projects dissolved quietly. Practical conversations about contracts brought the brothers back into the same room, and somewhere in those discussions, the memory of what working together felt like took over. The reunion produced How Can You Mend a Broken Heart, which asked out loud exactly what each of them had been living with privately. Barry's first marriage, to Maureen Bates in August 1966, ended by July 1970. 2 months after that divorce was finalized, he married Linda Gray, the woman he had first encountered in 1967 on the set of Top of the Pops in London, where she was filling in as hostess for the week. Massachusetts sat at #1 that week, and she hadn't even heard the song. Barry admitted on Piers Morgan's Life Stories in 2017 that he knew instantly. Not hoped, not assumed, but knew. And that certainty never shifted. They were married on the 1st of September 1970, his 24th birthday, and built a family of 5 children. Stephen, born December 1st, 1973, who later played with hard rock and heavy metal bands, including Black Label Society and Crowbar. Ashley, born September 8th, whose middle name honored Robert Stigwood. Travis, born in Florida in January 1981. Michael, born December 1st, 1984, and named after Michael Jackson, his godfather, who went on to pursue an acting career, and Alexandra, born December 1991. 7 grandchildren arrived across the years that followed, and in September of last year, Barry and Linda marked 51 years of marriage. The losses arrived one by one and never stopped accumulating. Andy Gibb, the youngest brother, died in 1988 at only 30 after years of battling drug addiction and depression, and his death landed as the first warning that talent and love weren't enough protection against everything. Maurice died in Miami in January 2003 at only 53, admitted to Mount Sinai Medical Center with a volvulus, a twisted intestine requiring emergency surgery, and taken by cardiac arrest before his body could recover. Robin died in London in 2012 at 62, colorectal cancer having spread to his liver, pneumonia leaving him in a coma from which he briefly regained consciousness before liver and kidney failure ended it. When Barry spoke publicly about outliving his brothers, he said his greatest regret was that every brother he lost had died during a period when they weren't getting along. He broke down in tears saying it, and described the 3 of them as having become one person in many ways, driven by the same dream and moving in the same direction. That shared purpose, he said, was what he missed most. Not the fame, not the accolades, but the understanding that only existed between the 3 of them. At 79, Barry lives in a waterfront estate in Miami Beach valued at around $25 million and keeps a UK property worth between $7 and $12 million. A Tennessee ranch he purchased in 2006 for $2.3 million, which had previously belonged to country music legend Johnny Cash, burned down during renovations in 2007 and was never rebuilt. His collection includes a Lamborghini Countach 5000S. His estimated net worth as of 2025 sits at roughly $140 million, drawn from Bee Gees royalties generating between $5 and $10 million annually, songwriting income adding $1 to $2 million per year, licensing and synchronization deals tied to the catalog contributing $3 to $5 million yearly, and select performances bringing in another $1 to $2 million. A Bee Gees biopic is currently in development with Barry attached as executive producer, a role that carries something more durable than any financial return, the right to shape how the story gets told. The music never stopped reaching people. The man who made it is still here, still selective about where he shows up, still protecting a catalog that has outlasted almost everyone involved in creating it. Barry Gibb is the last surviving member of the Bee Gees, the last person alive who knows what those harmonies felt like from the inside, and he carries that not as a legacy to celebrate, but simply as a life to keep living.